All right. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. We're running a little late. Apologize for that, but hopefully we can make up some time or at least stay on course going through the rest of the morning. Welcome to the Metro Board activities for September 11th, 2025. So it is September 11th, and before we begin, in recognition of the victims of the tragic events that took place on this very day 24 years ago, I'd like to ask my colleagues and also those who have joined us here in the room for a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you very much. 24 years, that's amazing. Time does fly. So thank you. And to get us started on our agenda today, I'll turn the floor over to Metro's Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, Jamie Johnson, for today's safety contact.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following that moment of silence, it is appropriate today to emphasize that safety and security of customers in the system is paramount. By being alert and reporting suspicious activity to law enforcement or a Metro employee, you can protect yourself, friends, family, and other customers. As you are going about your trip on rail, bus, and Metro Access, we ask, see something, say something. If you see something suspicious or some kind of behavior that doesn't quite seem right, say something. And the best way to say something is either by calling 911 or have saved in your contacts my MTPD text 696873 or the MTPD direct number 202-962-2121. And when I say MTPD, I mean the Metro Transit Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. And since this is our first public meeting of the day, I'll ask the Board Corporate Secretary to call the roll. Ms. Ellison?
Chair Alcorn?
Here.
Vice Chair Santos? Chair Santos. I'm sorry. You're here. Present. Director Jarvis? Present. Director Smedberg? Present. Director Henlow? Present. Director McAndrew? Here. Alternate Director Rye? Present. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And our first order of business today is to approve the agenda. So we have today's agenda in front of us for approval. Are there any objections, any changes from any members of the committee to the agenda as presented? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. So now we also have approval of minutes. We have minutes of our July 10th meeting. Are there any questions or objections or changes to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll assume those minutes approved as presented as well. So now that we're into the meat of today's agenda, a couple of items that we have. First of all, the committee will be asked to approve the annual update to Metro's Action Safety Plan, which will be submitted to the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission and ultimately to the Federal Transit Administration. Next, we're going to receive the Service Excellence Report, which details Metro's progress in meeting key performance indicators, or better known as KPIs. So this report's going to cover all of Metro's 2025 fiscal year, which ran through June 30, 2025. So I'm going to turn the floor back over to Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, Mr. Johnson, to begin on those agenda items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. The purpose of today's presentation is to obtain the board's approval for Metro's 2026 version of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. This is a document mandated by the Federal Transit Administration, which lays out the agency's plan to continually improve safety. This marks the 6th annual revision of this plan. Safety is at the heart of service excellence in our strategic transformation plan. At Metro, we do not provide service unless it is safe. Safety is more than an objective for us or a target. It's in fact a value at the heart of everything we do. Publicly seeking the board's support for the agency safety plan demonstrates how safety is at the center of our agency, delivering safe, reliable, convenient, accessible, and enjoyable service for our customers. But to understand the agency safety plan is to understand the Safety Management System, or SMS. This is the system by which we identify, assess, prioritize, and mitigate anything that may cause harm. Derived from lessons learned from Chernobyl in 1986, SMS is an accepted organizational methodology that has been adopted in industries like aviation, oil and gas, and nuclear as the very best practice to manage safety risk. In 2019, the FTA mandated all transit agencies adopt SMS, and Metro's ASP captures the detail of how we are now maturing SMS at Metro. SMS is composed of 4 key components, as described on this diagram, forming a continuous cycle of improvement. Safety management policy is the bedrock, formalizing SMS adoption by Metro and demonstrating our leadership's commitment and accountability to safety. Safety risk management is the set of processes and activities where we proactively identify, assess, and mitigate risks. It's about using data, processes, and tools to drive action before incidents occur. Safety assurance provides the necessary oversight through measuring, monitoring, and evaluating the operation to verify that processes and procedures are being conducted safely and that proactive actions are being taken to reduce risk further. And then lastly, safety promotion focuses on communication and training. It's about shaping the awareness, culture, and attitudes required to sustain the long-term effectiveness of SMS. So this timeline illustrates the rigorous multi-stage review process the Agency Safety Plan undergoes annually, and this year has been no different, consulting multiple stakeholders over several months. It's important to recognize the consultative nature of this process. We began with the review in March, appealing to all staff for comment and gathering input from labor union representatives as well as Metro executives and the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. We received over 50 substantive comments and questions. The draft was then reviewed twice by WMSC in the spring and the summer. In August, the draft received conditional approval from the WMSC, as well as a vote of approval from the Joint Labour Management Safety Committee, and it's now being presented to you, the Metro Board of Directors, before being passed to the WMSC's board for their vote. It's quite a process. So what's actually changed this year? I put this into a few buckets. Firstly, there are relatively minor updates to ensure the plan aligns with some organizational changes and minor edits to improve understanding. And then there are more substantive changes, such as updating ambitions around the quality and extent of training and establishing the Training Center of Excellence as a future goal for the organization, clarifying and tightening the role of the Executive Safety Committee and risk management, enhancing definitions and process around risk assessments and the use of the risk matrix. And all these updates were made based on lessons learned and incremental improvements to make our system better. And lastly, setting clear, measurable safety targets based on those metrics set by the National Transit Database, such as fatalities, collisions, transit worker assaults, and injuries across rail, bus, and metro access, is a key element of the Agency Safety Plan. We were always striving towards zero safety incidents. We also recognize the risks inherent in transit. And there are also some key related documents that we've updated too. The strategic layer of this plan, of this system, is the Agency Safety Plan itself, but there are key documents below it. For example, we updated the more tactical safety risk reduction plan, clarifying how we're using certain federal funds and addressing specific safety targets when it comes to topics like transit worker assaults. And the Joint Labour Management Safety Committee charter has also been updated to generate more constructive discussion. So lastly, this emphasizes again the consultative approach that's been taken as in previous years. And the next steps, if the board were to vote to approve on September the 25th, would be a vote by the WMSC Board of Directors. Metro then completes an FTA online process of self-certification, and then the plan would go live on the 1st of January. That concludes my presentation. I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. I do have a couple of questions, then I'll open up to see if questions from committee members or board members. My main question, I guess, has to do with the process. We do this annually, and it's updated. Does this annual process give us time to, is the sequencing right or the timing right to actually make improvements, or does it in any way constrain us in terms of actually implementing safety improvements throughout the year?
We are continually gathering information to update this plan. The formal process is just a way to implement those changes. Every year at this stage, it's incremental change. So we're making tweaks to what we're doing. So at this stage in our maturity, it's a very effective process to gathering that feedback and then putting it into practice.
Okay, all right. So, because I know, well, on the budget side, I know sometimes, you know, we look at 2 years or more. And so there's nothing constraining about doing this every year. Is that correct, from your perspective?
No, it's a process,
Yeah.
and it takes resources. It's also a requirement from the FTA to do
Well,
it.
there you go. Okay.
And Walter, the SMS
that's
is
the answer.
managed on a 3-year cycle.
Okay, then that's,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I saw Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamie, who is on the Executive Safety Committee?
It's executives from the senior executive team, not every member but of the senior executive team, but everyone who has a role and interest in safety. So that meets at minimum every 3 months, and then we communicate with those executives on a monthly basis. The intent is to ensure that those more high risk elements are front and center for the executives. We brief them, and then we discuss and try and reduce that risk as a team. It's a very constructive process, but you're only at that level discussing those hazards that are most intransient, those risks that are really hard to tackle, because there's a whole network of committees below that, problem solving and reducing risk before it gets to the executives.
And you chair that committee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, seeing and hearing no more questions or comments from board members, and thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. So we are, as a committee, being asked to approve the agency safety plan. So at this point, I'd go ahead and move approval. Is there a second? Okay, seconded by Vice Chair Santos of this committee anyway. Any discussion on the motion? All right, so I'll ask the board corporate secretary to call for the vote.
Chair Alcorn?
Aye.
Vice Chair Santos?
Aye.
Director Jarvis?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ellison. Now, let's move on to our information items. Okay, and who gets to be on point on this one? All right, Mr. Webster.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Alcorn, members of the committee and members of the board. I'm Tom Webster, Chief Planning and Performance Officer here at Metro. I'm joined by Jordan Holtz, who is our Senior Director of Performance Benchmarking and Customer Research. So as part of the activation of Metro's strategic transformation plan and to promote transparency to the board and public, Metro staff provide quarterly reports on progress towards the service excellence goals and objectives through a focus on our key performance indicators, or KPIs. We're here today with our fourth quarter and year-end report for fiscal year 25. As a reminder, the strategic transformation plan is Metro's collective North Star. It guides priorities for how we conduct our daily work, how we design our service, what investments we make in the system, and how we partner with our region. Fiscal year 25 marks the third year of the implementation of the STP, the Strategic Transformation Plan, which the board adopted back in February of 2023. Today's presentation provides results for FY25 and showcases trends since FY23 when the plan began. During this presentation, we'll also be highlighting some near-term actions we're taking in FY26 to continue to improve. So when we step back and look at FY25 compared to FY23, we see that our investments in making trips safer, faster, and more frequent have transformed both customer satisfaction and ridership. The Strategic Transformation Plan set an ambitious target, really a stretch goal of 85% of customers satisfied with their last trip, which represented really double-digit improvements from where we were at that time in FY23. Customers tell us over and over and over again that service needs to be safe, fast, and frequent. So through investments in safety, frequency, and the speed of service, we've achieved the satisfaction target for rail and are approaching it for bus. Ridership has also responded to the improvements we made and growing travel in the region. We've now seen more than 50 months of consecutive year-over-year growth, and ridership was up 9% this year compared to last year and 33% compared to FY23. Reliability, measured through on-time performance, has been relatively stable over that last 3 years, and we saw improvements in the second half of FY25. The STP also set ambitious on-time performance goals, 95% for rail and 80% for bus. And we will need continued focus internally here at Metro and support from our regional partners to reach these goals by upgrading our signaling system and expanding and improving bus priority throughout our region. Efforts to improve customer convenience have also had a positive impact with cleaner trains and buses and more accurate arrival predictions. While we haven't quite reached all of the stretch targets in the STP, we're making progress on those objectives as well. Now turn it over to Jordan to review some more details on the report.
Great, thank you, Tom. So when we look across all KPIs at the close of fiscal year 25, you can see that we've made progress towards our strategic transformation plan targets on many of those. Those are the ones denoted by the pink star. As Tom mentioned, this is thanks to one, stable operating funding that enables us to focus on frequency and ensure we have the staff needed to operate service. It's also a result of decades of capital funding, stable capital funding that's allowed us to make those necessary investments in our assets and maintaining our system. And of course, it's thanks to the daily actions of our operations and infrastructure staff out there, maintaining the system and operating service every day. Today, I'm going to focus on just a subset of key performance indicators that really speak to the results at the goal level related to customer satisfaction, but the appendix to the report has details on fiscal year 25 performance for all of these. Looking at ridership, Tom mentioned that we've had over 50 months of consecutive growth, and we all know our value to the region is through moving people. We've seen steady progress over the course of this strategic transformation plan and before on reaching that aspirational target of carrying 25 million riders a month. That is equivalent to 1 million riders a day and about 1 million on weekends. And I'm pleased to say that this spring, we reached that target 12 days. So we're well on our way there. Customer satisfaction is the primary way that we measure success for our service excellence goal. Looking at rail, we've reached our target of 85% for the past 2 years and surpassed it. On bus, you see steady improvements over the last 3 fiscal years. And on access, we had a slight setback this past year after gains in fiscal year 24. As Tom mentioned, across all modes, across all feedback channels, we hear from customers that our service needs to be safe. That's a baseline expectation, but that also they expect it to be frequent, fast, and reliable. And those are kind of the current most important aspects for satisfaction. So the rest of the presentation, I'll talk about what we're doing in those areas that has driven these results. So customers expect and deserve a safe system. And our strategic transformation plan target, as Jamie mentioned, for all of our safety measures is to drive towards 0. You see that, so we're always aiming to improve. You see we've had large reductions over the last 3 years, but our job isn't done. We're always aiming to get better. So in fiscal year 26, we'll be continuing those strategies that we've seen success with over the past few years. So what's behind our great rail customer satisfaction results? It's really been a focus over the last 3 years on more and better service. If we flash backwards to fiscal year 23, it's kind of hard to remember, but we were facing many structural problems. We had a deficit of rail cars. We had a high level of operator vacancies. We were running frequencies every 20 or 30 minutes. And if you look at that chart on the right, we were delivering only about 74% of our planned service. Since then, we were also facing a $750 million operating budget gap that threatened to reduce frequencies even more. And we had been operating for 15 years in manual train operations. Addressing these problems required partnership with the board, with Metro staff, with our jurisdictions, with our safety oversight committees. And you see in that graph kind of the remarkable turnaround. In fiscal year 25, we're delivering 93% of our planned service. And we're actually delivering more service today too, because we've been able to add frequency on the red line, on the silver line, on the green and yellow lines. So that's been great. And what do I mean by better service? This is that focus also on speed and reliability. And so in fiscal year 25, we marked the return of automatic train operation on all lines. At the end of fiscal year 25, every single rail trip was faster than it was in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 23. We also began to see the impact of that on our reliability measure, which is on-time performance. The latter half of fiscal year 25, we saw some good improvements and ended the year about a percentage point higher than where we ended fiscal year 24. In fiscal year 26, we continue to optimize automatic train operation and hope to see those improvements in reliability. So you may recall on bus customer satisfaction, we hit 83% at the end of the fiscal year 25. So what is it going to take to get to that elusive target of 85%? Well, customers tell us to focus on reliability. So we have two key performance measures kind of aligned to reliability. The first is the percent of our scheduled service delivered. This is kind of the opposite of missed trips, if you think about it that way, as well as bus on-time performance. You'll see we're very close to meeting our target for scheduled service delivered, but need a slightly larger improvement to achieve our target for on-time performance. In fiscal year 26, we'll be focusing definitely on things in our direct control, such as hiring our bus operators to fill vacancies created both by attrition as well as by operators promoted to other roles at Metro. It's kind of an entry-level gateway role for a lot of different jobs at Metro. Daily, our command center and our supervisors focus on managing early and late trips. We also have our twice annual schedule adjustments to take in the latest data about traffic conditions and operational conditions to ensure that we're developing schedules that can be delivered reliably. And of course, we'll also continue to work with our regional partners to expand bus priority across the region. As we know, congestion is our biggest threat to reliability. We have our worst on-time performance in the PM peak when traffic is worse. So that's something we can all work together to do. Okay, finally, we'll close with Metro Access. So fiscal year 25 was a year of transition for Metro Access. We transitioned to a different set of contractors and a different model. Like bus and rail, Metro Access customers tell us that reliability is the most important. So the graph you see here is about on-time performance. And you can see it dipped in fiscal year 25 as we transitioned to this new contracting model. Staff took action kind of right away as we saw performance declining, worked at a second contractor, worked with existing contractors, and we did see the results start to turn around in the second half of the fiscal year. You can see the improvement. We ended the year at 90% on-time performance, still slightly below our target, but definitely better than where we were middle of the year. And we've seen that continue through fiscal year 26, and we'll continue working in that way. So that concludes my presentation today. Happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate the highlights. It sounds like if you invest in something and then you execute well, you get better performance. I don't know. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I think, it's wonderful to see that logic actually play out in these numbers, and I do appreciate very much the KPIs, and not only the ones where the arrows are moving in the right direction, but also the places where they're not necessarily moving in the right direction, or they're not moving in the right direction, and the culture of continuous improvement, I think, is so important for every organization, for Metro as well. So that's very exciting. Just one thing in terms of KPIs, just to dive in a little bit more in terms of crime and also transit worker safety and crime against transit workers. How are we doing on crime, and then specifically to transit workers?
Great. So crime, here you see that we have had record low crime in fiscal year 25. Recently, kind of, I think we most recently just achieved an 8-year low. It has been a result of our focus on kind of visible staffing, addressing fare evasion in the system, leveraging our cameras, et cetera. So we have seen positive results there. On the transit worker assaults, I'm going to go back to our scorecard here. This is one of the measures in our agency safety plan, and it's measured by all transit agencies across the United States. This measure, you see this result here, it says 45.7. That's kind of a hard number to get around. What that is it's the number of assaults per 10 million vehicle revenue miles. So it's scaled to the service we provide. So you can tell from that line that it's been roughly stable over the past few years. I want to say, well, again, our target here is to always get to zero. So we always want to improve. One of the factors behind assaults is actually how many customers we have in our system. And you see that ridership has been increasing. We were up 9% this past fiscal year compared to last fiscal year. So kind of service levels haven't changed that much compared across fiscal years. So kind of keeping it at steady while it's not that reduction that we want to see. It is relatively not as bad as it could be.
I appreciate that very much, and again, with ridership up, that these metrics, you have to look at those carefully. But appreciate very much the commitment to continuous improvement, and obviously our work is to drive the crime rate to zero on all this, or as close as we can to get to it. Yes, General Manager.
If I make a comment, Board member, on that, and thank you for bringing that up. So, two comments. One on just overall, if you will, security. I want to take a moment and just recognize Chief Gonzalo's leadership. As just said, we're at an 8-year crime low, and we're actually on pace to the lowest crime year we've ever had at Metro. So we've kept data, electronic data, for 25 years, and we'd be on pace to have the lowest. So we clearly want zero crime. Society wants zero crime, but I think what I'm really, really impressed by is not only the employees feeling a safety in the system, but customers say they feel so much safer in the system than they did 3 years ago. I also want to acknowledge all of our partners, and whether that's local jurisdictional partners, FTA, and others. We're all working at it together, and we're never going to lay off the gas on trying to have zero issues on the system. On the employees, there's nothing we care more about than our employees going to work and being safe every day. And I do town halls. I'm out on, as many people know, I'm on the system every single day. I talk to all of our employees. A couple things I want to highlight there. One, we are expediting installation of bus barriers on all of our buses. We piloted out and worked with our unions very collaboratively to get the design right. It's something that's happened all over the industry, but we're already currently installing some at one of our facilities, and we're looking to ramp.
Wait, say more. What's a bus barrier?
Fully enclosed shield.
The shield. It's
fully-
just the shield. Oh, okay.
Fully enclosed
Yeah.
shield. Right now, they're probably like 75%, and
Yeah.
there's a fully enclosed. It's very difficult to actually manufacture because of glare and whatnot, but we have one that works, and the employees were part of that process. So we're doing that. Second, we are working really hard on the nexus between fare evasion and safety on the buses in relation to our employees. And so we have been significantly increasing fare enforcement on bus, and we do think that is showing some value, both employee safety as well on bus. But we also put in an EAP program several years ago where we have people out there from it's actually under Jamie's shop, under Dr. Amy's area, and then our crisis intervention team. So just kind of highlighting this topic is everything for us every day, obviously. And I just want to really recognize that the job is never going to be done. The job's not going to be done next year. It's not going to be done in 10 years. But I think the results have really demonstrated, and quite frankly, I think it's probably the indicator why ridership has come back so much at our system, is because people feel safe on the system. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, fantastic. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments? Yes, Ms. Ray.
Just congratulations on the rail and bus customer satisfaction approaching 85%. Congratulations to the team. Makes sense that Metro is going to be winning several awards at APTA coming up here. Wanted to ask a quick question about ridership with regard to Metro Access. You mentioned that the customer satisfaction fell, and I'm wondering if ridership has anything to do with that. Has ridership increased? Could that be affecting the metric at all?
So ridership has increased when we factor in trips on our partner abilities ride system. So there's kind of two aspects to Metro Access ridership. There's ridership on what we call our dedicated service, which is the Metro Access branded vehicles, as well as we partner with third parties to do abilities ride. And so when we look collectively, ridership is up 14%. The satisfaction results currently are just based on our dedicated service, and that on-time performance is also just based on our dedicated service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rai. Ms. Santos?
Thanks, Chair. Echoing Director Rai's comments about congratulations, because this is tremendous momentum that's been building. Could you speak to when Director Alcorn and I were briefed about some of the background of this information, we were most interested in what are some of the risks to continued successful momentum. I'm particularly interested in what factors would help improve the performance around bus and rail on-time performance. Could you speak to what would need to happen either directly by Metro, but also speak to perhaps what some of our jurisdictional partners and other partners could do to collaborate to help improve those numbers?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to discuss that a little bit here. So on rail, we are seeing significant improvements from, as Jordan discussed, return to automatic train operations. There is a limit to our 1970s technology and all of the human factors that go into providing service and customer human factors as they run our system. So really, the next big leap in on-time performance in rail is a reinvestment in Metro's signaling system, a move to a modern system to replace the legacy 1970s technology. That is going to take a substantial investment capital investment by the region. We are working diligently now on the program plan and plan to return to the board in October and then November with updates on that. But really, that's the key to building on the success we've seen in improving on-time performance. It's that next level of world-class investment in signaling and rail modernization. On the bus side, our biggest challenge fundamentally is congestion on the roads. We have more work to do to improve the quality of our service and things that are in our control, certainly, and we're going to remain focused on that. But again, the next level there is investments in infrastructure and technology to prioritize bus on roadways, particularly where we have high ridership, high frequency, high capacity service that is competing with single occupancy vehicles and other vehicles, parked cars that slow our buses down. So there are a number of implications to slow buses. It's less satisfying and reliable for customers. It is less cost efficient because the slower a bus goes, the more buses we need to operate to provide a certain level of frequency. So there's great opportunity there, but again, requires regional partnership and investment in upfront in capital to realize those benefits for customers and for our operating efficiency.
Thank you. And just to anchor this in practical reality, can you give a few examples of things that have either recently been put in or that are projected to put in to ease some of these issues of crowding and congestion on some of our most popular routes?
Sure. There are about 20 to 30 miles of bus lanes across our region, about 30. Yeah. And an example in the district is on 11th Street, where there are painted bus lanes, and that has allowed us both to move buses faster, move customers faster, but also realign some of our service as part of the network redesign to take advantage of that infrastructure. That's not fully dedicated lanes. It's a tactical approach that does speed up buses. So one example, there are several around our region, but much more to do in terms of infrastructure investment. And one other example is transit signal priority, and we are underway now with a modernization program to take, again, a legacy technology to the next level with our partners around the region. And again, transit signal priority allows buses to move faster through congested areas and intersections that tend to get bogged down in traffic.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Santos. Ms. Lowe?
That's Dr. Lowe. Mr. Alcorn. No, just Dr. Lowe. Okay. Just a few kind of detailed questions about what was in the report. So you mentioned that you think one of the drivers of higher rail customer satisfaction is like the trips are faster because ATO is back. But this report covers the period through June 2025, correct? And when you think about it, that's really like red line ATO. Am I recalling the timeline correctly? So like there's more juice in this fruit to squeeze because we actually in this report do not see the results of ATO implementation on our other lines. Well, maybe a little yellow and green?
A little on yellow and green.
Yeah. But basically, I can anticipate unwrapping a nice gift when I get the next performance report. Looking forward to it already.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Okay. Sorry. I'm not going to count my juice before it's squeezed. Okay. That means ridership is also just through June. I have gotten some questions and also have some of my own questions about how August and September ridership have been. I'm sure I know this is on our website somewhere, but can you just remind me, when do we kind of have the data on the books for me to just do, if I want to do just an August YOY?
Yeah, so we have on our website, we have the ridership portal, which provides a lot of detail about ridership. I believe August is already posted.
Shortly.
It'll be posted shortly. Usually it's July is definitely already posted. So.
Yeah, I didn't see August when I looked, but I also I didn't look yesterday, and I was I don't even know when. What is our tempo?
Yeah, usually it's kind of 3 or 4 weeks after the month end.
No, I understand these things take time. Don't post anything that doesn't have total data fidelity.
There are preliminary, Dr. Lowe, there are preliminary daily ridership numbers for both bus and rail that are released periodically during the month. What Jordan's describing is the reconciled month end, and that's where we get the year-over-year data.
Exactly. That's what I am willing to wait for that. Okay, so not yet, but soon, and not September, but later. Okay. To follow up on Mr. Alcorn's question about assaults, at a previous board meeting, the topic came up that, for example, I think it was the specific examples that spitting on an operator is a misdemeanor. It's not a Part 1 crime. So we have assaults on workers as a separate category. Can you give us a better sense of how we define assault for the purpose of that performance metric? What kind of I mean, without like getting too graphic, like what is assault?
Yes, I'm looking at my note here. So we follow the federal transit. It is not aligned with the crime definition of an assault, if that makes sense. It follows.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
It follows the Federal Transit Administration definition of assault. So it is assaults on a transit worker is a circumstance in which an individual knowingly, without lawful authority or permission, and with the intent to endanger the safety of an individual or with reckless disregard for the safety of human life, interferes with, disables, or incapacitates a transit worker while the transit worker is performing the duties of the transit worker.
That's fairly expansive. I think I like that definition. And I think that probably means we're capturing a lot.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I want to know about that for now. I think I just have one observation that I'd like to offer on the results that we're seeing this year and how all these pieces fit together, which is that honestly, a key takeaway of this report for me is that I think that frequency and reliability of service also speaks to safety. I think that is just a huge piece of it. Like I'm just thinking about this, like just from a common sense perspective. If we keep people moving and not waiting around, the system is going to be safer. And so I think that there is a really well integrated web of effort that is coming together here. And that's why the KPIs are moving. If we focus too much on any one thing and like a siloed set of approaches for how to move that KPI, actually we won't even get that result, much less these holistic results. So I think that's just something that's important to keep in mind as we are talking to stakeholders about how the system is managed, that it is a system. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lowe. Interesting thought that the shortest time on the system is actually a positive thing. Sort of the opposite of social media, right? Opposite. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. I believe this should be it in terms of items coming to the committee today. So we stand adjourned. And I'll now turn the floor over to Mr. McAndrew to begin the Finance and Capital Committee meeting.
Thank you, Chair Alcorn. Welcome to today's Finance and Capital Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of our July 10th meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Once again, hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We're here today to receive two informational updates on today's agenda. First, our colleagues here will be providing a look at Metro's financial performance for fiscal year 2025, which ended at the end of June, and just a little sneak peek. It was a good year. Next, we'll get an overview of Metro's vision and actions it's taken in support of its goals of world-class fair policy and fair payment infrastructure across our region. So excited to dive right in. I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to Ms. Alamide to get us going.
Good morning, Chair McAndrew and members of the board. I'm Yetunde Olumide, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Today, I'll be presenting the pre-audit FY25 financials. FY25 was a landmark year for Metro with many accomplishments, including being recognized as APTA's Outstanding Public Transportation Agency, carrying more than 264 million riders, a 9% increase year over year, with 52 consecutive months of ridership, delivering modernized fare gates to 98 stations and new fare boxes across the bus fleet, and launching the Tap Ride Go a contactless payment option, just to name a few. With all these achievements under belt, Metro still achieved a total year-end savings of $120 million. This is a sign of management's focus on continuous improvement, service excellence, and financial stewardship. Passenger revenue finished the year favorable to budget, driven by strong ridership growth. For total Metro Rail, ridership reached 139 million trips, compared to 114 million budgeted, and revenue totaled $402 million, which was about $73 million, or 22% favorable to budget. Metro Bus recorded about 124 million trips versus the 111 budgeted, with revenue of $56 million, which was about $3 million or 5%, also favorable to budget. Metro Access ridership and revenue were below budget. However, this was due to a continuing trend and shift in riders from Metro Access traditional to the very successful Abilities Ride service. Overall, Metro delivered 264 million trips in FY25 versus 227 million budgeted, with revenue of $462 million, which was $75 million or 19% favorable to budget. Looking at ridership and passenger revenue from a multi-year trend, FY25 continued Metro's trend of strong year-over-year growth in both ridership and revenue. Passenger revenue increased by $106 million compared to FY24, a gain of nearly 30%. Ridership grew by 22 million trips year-over-year, an increase of 9%. This sustained growth highlights Metro's ongoing recovery and momentum over the last several years. The FY25 budget included a number of efficiency initiatives to bend Metro's cost curve, and I want to acknowledge the work of the authority, what we did to implement these during the course of the year, including enterprise-wide efficiencies totaling about $50 million, wage freezes for all non-represented employees and two of Metro's largest collective bargaining units, totaling about $38 million, service optimization, including scheduling more six-car trains, where shorter trains provided sufficient capacity, and reducing service on low ridership holidays. These actions produced about $20 million in savings. With strong revenue and expense management, Metro's pre-audited financials closed with $120 million in savings. This includes $28 million one-time operating savings, which will be carried forward into FY26 operating budget, and $92 million from reduced preventive maintenance transfers, which will be reinvested in the 6-year capital program. Total revenues of $594 million were about $106 million or 22% favorable to budget. Total gross expenses were about $2.53 billion, about $14 million or less than 1% unfavorable to budget. The gross subsidy was about $1.94 billion. As noted earlier, the year closed with the $28 million in operating savings and an additional $92 million for a total of the $120 million. Okay. Then in also continuing on the capital side, Metro utilized about $1.75 billion in capital expenditures, about 82% of the $2.1 billion budgeted. The program advanced several critical projects across the system. We completed the Fairgate retrofit program and launched Tap Right Go, enhancing station access and payment options. For rail, scheduled vehicle maintenance and 7K series wheelset replacement program were completed, covering total of 358 rail cars. Metro also contracted on buses in FY25 and has the flexibility to contract for additional mixed buses on the fleets going forward. Metro's capital budget utilization for FY25 was about 82%, with $1.75 billion in expenditures against $2.1 billion budgeted. This utilization level is mostly associated with scope and schedule changes, as well as market conditions. Metro's first 3 years of the capital program is funded at an average of $2.3 billion annually, starting in FY29. Metro's capital funding drops to an average of about $1.4 billion annually as our debt ceiling is reached. Although the planning for the upcoming FY27 to 32 is not final, Metro expects that the FY29 will be the last year that any debt that is backed by dedicated funding can be issued. And lastly, the FY25 financial statement audit will be reported to the board in November. It's currently ongoing. I received a report this week, and at this time, the health is green on the project. So this concludes my presentation of FY25 pre-audited financials. I want to thank you for your time this morning. I'm happy to take any questions the board may have.
Thank you. That was great. And as I hinted, we did a tremendous amount of good work last year on many fronts, financial, ridership, revenue, operations, and I commend the team. I think what I gleaned from this is that we also have, tough questions and tough times ahead on the budget side that is going to need to be addressed in one way or another, as we transition. But I think, one really, really impressive bit of work is the amount of revenue received off the fares and what we were able to do with it in terms of reducing our PM transfer, which ensures that we can invest in, a safe, reliable system for our riders and for the region. So I think it's a truly impressive banner year from where we were, where we are, hopefully where we're going to go. So appreciate it. Thank you. I'll open it up for questions. Dr. Lowe.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. 100% with you on that. PM number just jumps out and just screams to be celebrated. I think, though, that it's important to observe that that's not just about like booking all of this revenue, especially like positive to what was budgeted, but is about all of the cost efficiencies that have been achieved. Like when I think about what it must be like to be on the cost efficiency task force, okay, you're not getting any hugs at the Christmas party, right? Like that's just really thankless work in the public sector. And so I commend every member of that task force, and I will hug you if no one else will. I mean, it's really good work. I think, we at the board level have all this focus on how WMATA, how the governance works and where the funding comes from. And sometimes that means there's not enough focus on how WMATA is managed and how the spending is managed. And I really salute the general manager and the entire team for where you are on spending. The heroes of this region fought really hard for dedicated capital funding for Metro, and to see where we ended up on PM and how that money has been protected and sent to the capital plan is outstanding.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe.
Perfect. I think the GM wanted to say a few, did I see? No? Okay, Director Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yetunde, is there any way to gauge how much revenue increase has occurred because of tap and go? Can you get that granular? I'm just sort of curious.
Okay. No, thank you for that question. And the answer to that is yes. We are watching that closely. I do not have those numbers with me at this time, but we're happy to get that to you after this meeting.
But it is something you can measure.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're averaging, I think maybe about 30,000 a day so on rail side on tap ride and go. And it continues to increase a little bit.
We need like a cash register sound button that we can push.
Well, that's, so part of it is we want to get certain people away from traditional fare vending because it's actually more cost advantageous for us for them to use. But other people, we don't want to do tap ride and go because we want them to have passes, right? And so once we get our bus lined up, and we're making very good progress and more to come this fall on that and in parking, we'll do another really big campaign about tap ride and go. And then the next presentation is actually going to be a little bit about this. And there's so many future opportunities about partnering with that. Since I had the mic, thank you.
Well, I have actually a follow-up. I was going to ask you offline, but while we're talking about this now, what about the transit subsidy? Are we seeing are there any changes there? Is that staying sort of steady, constant, rising, going down? People using it.
Yeah,
Are
yes.
you asking about Metro Lift or Fed?
No, like
The
smart
actual-
benefits?
The smart benefits.
Smart
Or is there
Okay.
a way to gauge that? I'm
Yes.
just sort of curious.
Yes, we've seen Director Smedberg, steady growth in the use of smart benefits,
Okay.
both federal employees and others over the course of the last several years, but particularly this calendar year. And in early in September here, we're seeing similar smart benefits federal employee ridership to what we saw in May and June. So returning from the summer and a higher level of use there. It's still not where it was once,
Right.
but much higher than it was a couple of years ago.
It's encouraging.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll go to Chair Santos.
Thank you. And thank you for a very helpful, thoughtful presentation. I have a couple of different questions. So first of all, we are interested obviously in opportunities for ongoing efficiency, and was very pleased to see the numbers for this year. So my question is, what opportunities are there for significant efficiencies in the next 1 to 2 years? If you could just highlight that. I'm particularly interested if you could speak to as well the potential impact of implementation of ERP, because I know ERP Metro is invested, if I recall the numbers correctly, almost 100 million in significant transformation of our HR systems, supply chain management, all the critical back office. So presumably that will achieve efficiencies, and just want to hear more about when we can expect to see that. Thanks.
Thank you for that question, Chair Santos. We were actually talking about this yesterday. We are continuing to work through the initiatives for FY26, but as we develop the FY27 budget, which we will come back to this board on, we are looking broadly at organizational development type initiatives going forward, also at digital modernization a lot closer, what we can do with newer technology, any kind of AI automation that we can do as well. On the ERP side, the project is ongoing. There has been a reassessment, and we continue to work with Oracle Fusion, still on right now the agenda. The budget is right about what you had just described, but we will come back when we talk through on the capital projects going forward in October, in the October timeframe, with more details around that.
Second, totally different question. There was a slide mentioning the fiscal cliff, and I know obviously it's a concern, and I know that there's also room for think the slide implied, and maybe I read an earlier draft, I'm not sure, but that we'll hit the cliff, I think, in a year. But my understanding is that depending on how we roll out our capital projects, there is some room to manage the timing of that. Again, can you please just clarify and speak to that?
Why don't I take that one, Board Chair? So there is a slide. So basically, we hit in 29 the debt ceiling, meaning we won't be able to issue more debt against the 500 million that is dedicated. But that 500 million, as we all know, was never, it doesn't have an escalator on it. So at some point, it was going to hit to this wall. So that's why DMV moves is so important. And there's another effort in Virginia that's tied to this. And ideally, in the next, our upcoming legislative sessions, we're going to hopefully work with all of our partners to get that's solved. Basically, that number can always, the number can't move, but the timing can move in the sense of execution. So this is going to be kind of a fundamental part of the October capital workshop, which is right now we're going to basically work this year towards 2 capital budgets to show the board. One would be if we have that funding and all the things we can deliver and the predictability of that, and another is going to be kind of like this and the impact to the program if we have to go down about 800 million a year. So that's what we're going to bring to the board this year is an operating budget that, quite frankly, is in good shape. We're going to manage within 3% and find more efficiencies, and we have some of those aligned. Plus, there's some service needs that we're going to continue to work on. But the capital focus will be kind of showing 2 different versions, one with the appropriate funding to move our program forward, and another which is going to be a capital cliff that we're going to hit. The problem that is FY29, it seems like it's multiple years out, but it means this year we will make capital decisions in a board-approved program that will deliberately reduce spending and ultimately cost us more money in the aggregate, but that's what we'll have to do if we don't get the capital funding result.
Just to highlight, to that point, our capital program doesn't just yo-yo on and off and we deliver tomorrow. What was promised in 2018, such as things like enhanced communications throughout our system, is still yet to be fully delivered. It's a big system. It takes time. And so, that predictability over not just 6 years, but longer helps deliver what we're after from just a basic resilience and safety perspective as well. So are there any other questions on this subject matter? Yes.
Just clarifying again on back to fiscal cliff for a moment, which is my understanding of what you just said is this funding is definitely going to cover state of good repair, and the additional potential funds that may be committed through the DMV process is to deal with necessary upgrades to the system. Is that a fair description?
I would not necessarily use those terms. So to us, in transit, there's basically 2 things, right? There's what, if you will, a wonky term, state of good repair, I'd argue, which is modernization, i.e. our fridge is old, we need to get a new fridge. When you get the new fridge, it comes to stuff that didn't come with the fridge 20 years ago. You can call it modernization, call it state of good repair. That's almost all of our budget. Then there's like expansion. And we have very, very little of that. And if we do, it's in the planning category on things like bus rapid transit and working with partners and whatnot. We have no stations that we're planning. We have no line extensions that we're planning, certainly not under design and construction. So if you went to, like, say, LA Metro, their budget would be trying to balance both. New York, even though they're old, they're doing both. Boston is still doing. We're kind of unique in transit where we're only looking to fund asset renewal. Maybe that's the term that might help everyone, but so it just happens to be newer stuff. But if we don't get the money resolved, not only are we not going to upgrade our signaling and continue to work on elevator, escalators, and what it really means is the average age of our bus is going to go up. Our average age of rail vehicle is going to go up. We're going to have more signal failures. So if we don't get this resolved, I'm not saying it's today or this quarter, but we're probably in this year to next year, the highest performance the system's ever going to get to, and then it's steadily going to go down. And then there'll be a part where it rapidly goes down because the cost and the type of equipment, especially in signaling, just can't be maintained. So it's safe because it always fails safe, but it's just a reliability piece that we'll be throwing more and more resources to main stuff. Quite frankly, 1970 late 60s, 70s technology. So I look at it as all of this is about making sure, as Board Member Andrews said, a big system is safe, frequent, and reliable. And there's maybe a little bit of money in there that we can think about the next generation, but it's certainly not to build anything new.
Perfect. Thank you. We will move on to the next informational presentation on fare modernization.
Thank you, Chair McAndrew. Again, Tom Webster, Chief of Planning and Performance. So in alignment with the Strategic Transformation Plan, Metro is investing and adapting to changing customer payment preferences for services and continuously improving to deliver a world-class experience for our customers. Fare technology serves as the backbone that enables innovation for our customers and for efficiency and revenue collection. This includes both what customers interact with, like fare gates and fare readers on buses, as well as the back-end infrastructure that connects all the physical infrastructure and processes payments. So today, our primary fare payment method is SmartTrip, which is administered by Metro and accepted by many of our region's transit providers as part of a SmartTrip consortium. Fare payment systems and equipment are assets generally with decades-long lives. SmartTrip just celebrated its 26th birthday back in May. It's a technology, it's this technology that establishes what fare policy choices are available to Metro in the region, and it's therefore really important to think about the future vision of modernized fare policy while we modernize fare technology. Metro's customers and transportation customers around the region want transit to operate as one system, regardless of the operator that serves a bus stop or a rail station. There is an opportunity now for the region to make fare payment more seamless and integrated, unifying transit under a single shared payment method. This aligns with some of our world-class peers internationally, Singapore, London, Japan, and Germany, for example. Each of these world-class peers enables seamless travel using a single method of payment on every transit mode, which along with high-quality service and land use choices helped lead to high ridership and a high % of people who are traveling using transit. So modernizing our region's fare policies and fare payment technologies can enable this type of vision. Regional fare modernization will also provide benefits to transit providers by consolidating duplicative procurement and maintenance activities, and through this, the region can realize operational efficiencies. In 2021, the board adopted fare policy principles that direct Metro to adopt customer-focused fare policies and systems, which position it as an attractive choice in a competitive travel market. Metro has really continued to simplify fares since 2021, including a few examples like removing peak fares, introducing free transfers between bus and rail, and discounting late night and weekend rides. Metro has also introduced new technologies to make it easier for customers to pay. So back in 2021, we launched Mobile SmartTrip, which now accounts for over 25% of Metro trips and spending on Metro fares. Customers can also now pay with their own contactless credit and debit card on Metro, or on their credit card or debit card on their phone, on Metro Rail, and soon on Metro Bus and Parking, as was discussed earlier. And that continues to grow since it was launched on rail earlier this year. Today, as I mentioned, our region's primary fare payment infrastructure is SmartTrip, which is managed by Metro with the collaboration of many of our regional transit agencies. So from inception, SmartTrip was designed to link our region's shared customers with one shared payment method. And today, operators with SmartTrip capabilities, so where SmartTrip is enabled, provide about 92% of transit trips in the region. Customers also tell us they value the convenience of SmartTrip, which has increased dramatically as cash use has decreased as a way to pay for transit. SmartTrip has successfully connected most local bus and commuter bus operators, but remains difficult to scale as it's a legacy technology. We anticipate that a new and modern fare payments framework will make it much easier to connect all regional operators and other partners throughout the region. Importantly, customers already use our region's many transit operators as one regional transit system. So this past year, we've seen at least 77% of customers using regional bus operators like Ride On or Fairfax Connector also use Metro each month. Our bus infrastructure is already set up to serve these customers. 20% of all Metro bus trips start at a bus stop that's also shared with a regional transit provider. So our regional customer base wants a simple and cohesive regional fare system, and Metro is ready to work with our partners to further this regional integration. Despite our shared customers, our current fare policies in the region are inconsistent and fragmented. Today, there is no regionally consistent base fare or transfer policy. Customers can't buy one unlimited pass for use across the region's transit. Low-income customers do not receive a consistent discount across the region. Students in both K through 12 and at universities have no consistent regional discount. And while most transit operators have a senior and disabled program, our shared customers usually must reapply at each individual operator to receive a discount. An example of inconsistent and fragmented regional fare policy is our K through 12 student passes. 4 of our major jurisdictions offer free transit on the local bus operator for K through 12 students, but most students cannot use these free SmartTrip cards to travel for free on other operators. This inconsistent policy creates or causes customer confusion among students, parents, schools, and operators. Other programs, as I mentioned, like our UPass program, have similar inconsistencies in policy and treatment. So our region's fare policy inconsistencies generate some real challenges for transit operators. First, inconsistent fares cause customer confusion. So an example, at the Tacoma Langley Transit Center on the Montgomery County, Prince George's County border, Metrobus, Ride On, and the bus share and serve the same stops, even sharing the same bus flags at that station. And so for customers there getting on a bus, it is unclear what bus you have to pay a fare on and which ones you don't. This confusion goes hand in hand with fare enforcement as well. Some customers now expect buses to be free, and this requires extra communication and enforcement to collect fares on those buses that are charging a fare. Inconsistencies in fares also allow some customers to benefit more than other customers. For example, some riders pay no bus fare while customers living just a few blocks away must pay a fare to ride the bus. These fare policy inconsistencies also negatively impact transit provider operations. With inconsistent fare policies, transit providers often have to perform duplicative work, whether it's validating transfers between operators or repeating procurements or maintaining different fare payment standards and rules. This ultimately leads to poor economies of scale. So to support Metro's fare modernization, our capital program over the years has invested a substantial amount to modernize and upgrade legacy equipment and software and systems. So looking into the next year, what's coming next, Tap Ride and Go will be available later this year on Metro Bus and will roll out to Metro parking facilities. And we plan to continue our procurement process to replace our existing legacy fare vending machines. You've probably noticed in the system, we've been decommissioning those fare vending machines as their use has declined pretty significantly as we modernized fare payment through mobile and the mobile payment on phones and watches, and now Tap Ride Go. They will be replaced by a modern, much more efficient and fewer fare vending kiosks. So because these fare payment technologies set as I mentioned, the bounds of what fare policies are possible to implement, as we're continuing to plan for future investments in technology, we really want to understand where our region wants to be now and into the future. Much of the design of Smart Trip 25 years ago allowed for regional integration over the years, and so too will this next revisiting of our fare system modernization. The region has many opportunities for improved regional fare integration. Transit providers currently using Smart Trip payment systems can easily expand into regional fare integration by agreeing to join Metro's Lyft low-income fare program, working with Metro to offer full transfer credits for all transferring customers, and working with us to accept rail and bus unlimited passes on their services. With an agreement to improve, a regional agreement to improve fare policy and coordination, we can design and use modern technology to improve the customer experience and maximize efficiency. At a higher level, the region can work together to adopt modern payment infrastructure region-wide, agree to a regional fare policy framework, and develop consistent fare policy at the regional level. In the longer term, these actions can also help fulfill our region's vision to unify Metro, our regional commuter, regional and commuter buses, regional rail, capital bike share, scooters, and more under a single consolidated unified fare policy and payment technology. So to do this, our regional or our world-class peers have focused on regional fare integration. They go further by taking additional steps to provide seamless and customer-focused fare policies. They all have a few things in common: a unified vision for pricing policy across all travel modes, a centralized regional coordinating authority, which is responsible for both administering fare technology and coordinating and developing fare policy. These traits, again, allow for seamless customer travel among all modes of transit. So this is possible in our region as well. So with regional and jurisdictional agreement, we could bring this world-class standard to the Washington region. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to support the discussion and answer any questions.
Thanks, Tom. So this is incredibly maybe weedy, not terribly exciting, but it is exciting to me for various reasons. But I'll touch on a couple of themes that I think are important for us to just acknowledge. And, you know, depending on where my colleagues in other jurisdictions, the investors in WMATA and their own fare systems or operations may be, I think there's real opportunity. So what, Tom, you kind of hit on was an arc of progress, right? We're at a critical phase today. I think what wasn't articulated was there's a sizable investment we need to make on back-end improvement, back of house, the stuff people don't see. That investment, when we make it, is the new frontier that's going to accelerate us into the new technological opportunity. We can either do it with WMATA doing it alone, or we can do it as a region and get that economy of scale and get that purchasing power that WMATA can bring to the fold. And I think that is a really important thing for us to know. WMATA historically, 10, 15 years ago, was a little bit challenged. I think you articulated in 2020, we as a board stepped in, and prior to that, I think the team was already looking at ways to improve our fair strategy, fair system strategy, and that's bearing fruit today. And I think, we can see it with things like Tap Ride Go coming on in historic record time, as well as just being kind of, first in the nation type approaches to how you ultimately bring a program like that online. I think we as a region invest significant amount of money into WMATA to have the talent and the technology to do it for the region. I think we don't fully realize that, nor do we leverage it. And the economies of scale does a couple of things, right? It reduces the friction for somebody to access the system. It increases use that people are using, and it also increases revenue. That revenue is important because that revenue then reduces the subsidy, but also we reinvest it into service, frequent, reliable, safe service that folks are asking for. So I think getting this right is really important to delivering on what our customers and what the region expects of WMATA. So to that end, we have opportunities. There's in any, question of where you're at in the history of time and asking how you move to that next step. It's, you can either crawl, you can walk, or you can run. I think that we've got an opportunity coming through DMV Moves that Director Smedberg is chairing for us, but also continued work as a region, with our partners, whether it be at the local jurisdiction level in Maryland or in Virginia, to try to figure out what's the art of the possible to achieve something closer to this than where we are today. So I'll get off my high horse, but that's my vision. I'd like to continue to work with the team in the region to try to articulate a strategy and then deliver upon it. Any questions? Yes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'll comment on that, and I agree with you 100%. DMV Moves does seem to be the vehicle to move some of this forward, and I hope if any of them are listening or watching today, I see some of them in the crowd who would have an influence over that. I think this is something that we should do. This has been talked about for a while in various levels of seriousness, and why aren't we doing this over the years since I've been involved in this arena? And it just really does seem to make some sense to do this, and we need to elevate it and really make it happen.
Chair Santos.
Yes, thank you. And I agree and appreciate the push to trying to see if we can get closer to this vision. A couple of just practical questions, which is clearly there's opportunities for efficiencies and savings for Metro, but also for others in improving the customer experience. Are there any order of magnitude estimates of the potential, pick a category, cost to us and the potential return to Metro of integrating some element? I know it's probably difficult to, these are, again, clearly order of magnitude, but I think that might focus the mind, which is we could save, I have no idea, 10 million, 20 million, or we just don't really have a sense, is question one. And question two, which is related, which is one of the challenges here, of course, is that in our region, there's multiple overlapping jurisdictions, and even within jurisdictions, multiple authorities that would have to approve and be on the same page, which is different, obviously, than in Singapore, for example, right? Where it's much more streamlined structure of reporting and accountability. That said, surely there are things that either Metro or another partner could take leadership on. So my question is, could you please give some examples of things that could be done in theory in the next 1 to 2 years, near term, that maybe either for our board to consider or perhaps that could be addressed directly at DMV Moves? Thanks.
Tom, I'll make a couple comments and then, because I think that's a great question, Board Chair. So we don't have to be Singapore to this. So Singapore obviously is probably the best in the world at this, and they've been doing this Like this slide was done 15, 20 years ago in Singapore, and all tolling, everything in the world is all interconnected. So this is not a technology issue. This is a policy issue. A couple good examples that I can think of would be if you went to Ontario. So Ontario is the second largest economy outside of California in North America. It's probably 10, 12 million people or whatever it is across Ontario. There's one card, one account across all the transit systems in Ontario. So not just Toronto, all the other ones. And they purposely did it that way. And was there fighting and arguing about it? Of course, because it changed power control dynamics. But now no one will go backwards because it's an obvious thing to do, right? Bay Area in San Francisco, that area, I know you're from that area. That's been kicked around forever. Now that has forced a lot more, and there's like 27 transit agents, I think, in the Bay Area. The greater Seattle area has an ORCA card, a lot of integration there, and there's some stuff going on in South Florida as an example. So this is not, if you went to Germany, there's literally a ticket that can go across the entire country of Germany. So there's a lot of examples, and they're not all the exact, but this is, again, I don't want to say we're at the very end of the line, but we're certainly nowhere near the leader on doing this. On the money part, I don't know, Tom, you jump in after I'm here, is I think the biggest benefit outside of the customer, and ideally we move mode share, is cost avoidance. But that cost avoidance might not be Metro's cost avoidance. It might be the region's cost avoidance. So, i.e., one of our local operators or regional rail operators, if we used our system to collect fares on, I'll make it up, MARC trains, and we put validators out there, what does that mean for MARC's budget? But so to me, it's not about Metro so much as the regional spend on transit. We believe we can go down, but it's really about scale. So if one agency wants to do it with us, there's not much. If two, maybe not much. If everyone, now we all get the benefit. And that's this, it's really hard to do an analysis because people say, if you show me my thing, but your thing might not change unless 5 others go with it. To get to that, though, we also have to have, in my mind, some type of unified fare policy, because the policy drives the technology and the cost, not just the fare, but the cost of implementation. And if that meant Metro is responsible for all the fare boxes for the region, maybe that's the right thing to do. And quite frankly, maybe that's part of the compromise on the long-term funding, which is here are the outcomes that Metro will do for the region, not owning it all, but supporting it all. And so we're just, we were asked by a board member again to put this together. We want to be a good partner, and whatever the right thing for the region is, we're happy to help. So Tom, feel free if you want to add on that.
Thank you, Randy. I'll add an example of the cost avoidance that the general manager was describing. So several years ago, we embarked on a procurement to replace legacy fare boxes that were obsolete with modern bus fare payment technology, with readers and a new fare box system. Because of the fragmentation and the inconsistencies, that contract was structured to as a base to replace Metro's infrastructure, and then options for each of the local bus operator providers to replace their legacy antiquated bus fare boxes. The nature of that contract structure drives the cost up. If we had pursued that as a combined effort to replace all fare boxes region-wide, we would have gotten economies of scale on the structure of the contract. Then in addition to that, the time that elapsed between when the contract was awarded and jurisdiction and local bus operators decided whether or not to pursue the option led to cost escalation for those local providers. So that didn't hit Metro as much as maybe a reduction in the overall contract, but it drove up the cost of fare box replacement for the local providers that pursued that. So the fragmentation makes it a little bit difficult to say we would save exactly this much, because it's embedded in the structure of how we've been pursuing these things as a region. I think in terms of near-term next steps, as the general manager mentioned, that a lot of this is not technology. It's policy and navigating through bureaucracy and other things. There are already built, ready to turn on features like the Metro Lift program that a jurisdiction could opt into and turn on in a matter of months, not years. The technology, the policy, the structure is already there. So those are some of the first three here are very near term if we can reach some agreement with our partners to pursue those things.
So to that end, just to make everybody aware, MTA sees great value in it, right? Administrator Arnold and her team are seeing great value in the talent and the work that's being done at WMATA, and we're looking to actually leverage the code for Metro Lift and adopt it in MTA system statewide. So, if you're up in Baltimore, you'll be able to hopefully see a similar type of operation shortly. And same goes for Tap Ride Go, right? If we can leverage it in a way that's beneficial. What would be great, from a WMATA perspective is they know that we want to when they go into a contract, because then they have a bigger purchasing power driving down the cost, not just here, but everywhere. And so I think of this as getting a little weedy here, but we talk about it on the roadway side of dig once, right? When you're digging, you're going in and hopefully addressing everybody that has right of way or easements in there, utilities and such. Too often what happens is WMATA is moving and others aren't yet ready, or they don't see the vision. We need everybody buying into the vision now, because it actually drives better outcomes long-term, while also making sure that we get the economies of scale, not just for us, but for WMATA and for our partners, and most importantly for our riders. But I'll go out to Dr. Lowe.
Dig once, sure, but this actually reminds me of the shopping at Costco analogy that came up a couple of years ago at a Finance and Capital Committee talking about Metro access. And it seems like the state of Maryland is really in their interest to take a hard look at shopping at Costco. For me, I think the most interesting piece of this for me is the possible opportunities to integrate and partner with Capital Bike Share. It's already also a regional system, and the overlap in the user base is anecdotally huge. And just personally, when you think about abundant green mobility as a lifestyle and like an option that we want to make like as holistic and available to everyone as possible, that just seems like particularly low-hanging fruit, and like a conversation that I would love to see happen tomorrow, right? And not just for the residents of the region, but like also think about visitors. Like, are we really, you think people are installing all these apps? No, it's too many. No one's like, let me download Smart Trip and Capital Bike Share and Charm Pass. Okay, me, yeah. Okay, but I mean visitors. Yeah. I finally had to admit that I can't keep deleting Charm Pass off my phone. I just need it there all the time. But my point is, like, one app or even like no app, just Tap Ride Go, right, across bike, light rail, metro rail, heavy rail, like it would just be, it would be amazing. And I think that like we should be taking steps tomorrow to get to that vision of abundant green mobility as a lifestyle.
Director Alcorn.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the discussion and the leadership and the vision. I think overall, the slide on the authority concept might be a little early. I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen for, coordinating entity. And I appreciate the point that this is not really a technology issue. I mean, practically in terms of implementing the technology, those could raise some issues, timing and that sort of thing. But I think it is more of a policy question on fair policy. That's the bigger challenge. And I just remind everybody in relation to that, I mean, fair policy is many times directly related to investment choices and subsidy issues. And typically, what do they say? He who pays the piper carries the tune. And, maybe not immediately, but over time. So I think that's that's keeping that in mind. I think that's the discussion that is happening in DMV Moves in the subcommittee, and that needs to happen going forward is, okay, how might these things come together? And they're, appreciate the comments that have sort of, I think, highlighted some of the potential value proposition for moving in this direction. But I, for one, would love to see a little bit more on what the value proposition really could be, you know, for the region. You know, in particular, as, you know, looking at, you know, the slide that says 20% of all Metro bus trips start at bus stops shared with a regional provider. That's very helpful. But you know, another question as, for example, VRE expands their service. You know, what kind of profile are we looking at for VRE riders that also use Metro? So, you know, where might there be those connections that would really lay out a value proposition? And maybe, and I think looking forward a little bit too, as these different systems mature and sometimes expand, what does that mean in terms of the value proposition for going in this direction? So again, I appreciate it. There's obviously a lot of moving parts and a lot of people that would have to buy into this, but I definitely do see the potential. Thank you.
So I was going to say, we'll take action. I think to us, that means direction to put a little more meat on the bone here of what kind of not just the money, but really some timeline and opportunity. Like Tom mentioned, there's some stuff that is low-hanging fruit. We could more or less move within this budget cycle. And then there's stuff that we actually need policy or a little bit more tech. But like, I think the one VRE is a great example. If you're going to the airport, let's say you live in Manassas and you're going to National Airport, you got to go on two different systems that don't have an integrated pass in 2025. That's hard to envision that a customer thinks that's convenient in 2025.
That's not a lifestyle.
And same deal, you could be going to BWI and you take a train to New Carrollton and get on MARC, and that's not integrated. Or if MARC or VRE had service issues, or we had service issues, and we want to get them to take MARC to New Carrollton because we're having an issue on the Orange Line, and we just deal with reciprocity on fares during outages, we don't do that. And so a good example, without getting too crazy about our tech, is like if you went to Boston, that's all integrated as the MBTA. If you went to Philly, it's done that way. New York, right? Like, so there's stuff that's actually, you don't have to go to Singapore for this. And because they're one operator that runs that whole region. So there's ways that we can peel this in kind of slow, medium, and fast speed. So I think we'll take that as an action to put a little bit more work and bring that back.
And just in terms of pride of ownership of the fair media is one thing, but at the end of the day, the same folks that are paying the subsidy for VRE are the same people paying the subsidy to WMATA.
Exactly.
So how do we think about this coherently at that level? But Director Rai?
Just wanted to echo that I love the coordinating authority concept, especially with DMV Moves driving progress, because it seems like there's piecemeal integrations that already exist. There's smart benefits that can be transferred to MARC or VRE, and it seems like this is one area where, as an authority, we're behind. We're behind the ball here. So I wanted to ask, you said that there were discussions with MTA and they were positive. Has MARC been a part of those discussions?
Yep. So I think, you know, if I were to put my non-WMATA board hat on here, typically when, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, when a jurisdiction is interested in engaging on the conversation is when their time to do the investment comes up. And so right now we are in that investment cycle in the state of Maryland, not just with Baltimore's fare system, MARC, which is a little bit different, but it can get better, and the Purple Line as well. And so that's when we're coming forward saying, how can you help me? And not, how do we do this together?
Just don't forget Capital Bike Share as you put meat on the bone. Want to hear about it.
Well, bikes as a good example, if you went to LA Metro, bikes are part of LA Metro. When I was in Austin, we took over the bike program, which is a little bit like Capital Bike Share is here, run by a nonprofit in Austin, and we took it over in the transit agency and made it into a fully integrated ticketing. Houston, I believe, does that now. There's a handful of others that do it as well. I mean, that's kind of standard now getting more standard around the world. So if that's what the region wants us to do, we could, quite frankly, that's not that big of a lift, I don't think, to do ultimately. And the crossover of customer base is enormous in that category. I mean, the next big thing that we, which would take work to do is, I know you were talking about Singapore, is the tolling part and the parking part are so obvious to align with this too. And that's the mobility as a service concept that you would get in more of a Finland or Singapore. But you got to start somewhere if you want to end there. So we're here if people want to actually partner with us, and we'll use, I think, as you said, the expertise and resources and sophistication of this agency to help.
So what we just heard is that WMATA is open for business, ready to partner, and we will work with Mr. Smedberg and others on the DMV initiative to make sure that our colleagues throughout the region are ready as well. Thank you. Thank you. With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned. This concludes our public meeting for today. I'll turn the floor over to Chair Santos, who has a request for the board to convene an executive session.
Thank you, Director McAndrew. In accordance with the bylaws, I, Valerie Santos, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections. A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government. And C, contractual or other matters involving confidential or proprietary concerns or other investment of public funds where discussion in public would adversely affect the financial interests of WMATA. Is there a second? Thanks, Director Smedberg. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and we're only 10 minutes late. We're adjourned.